Personal and private property are two different things. Now, personal and private may seem to be synonyms. However, in this context, they hold particularly different and well-defined meanings. Personal property is what is your own, what you need to live and survive. So this includes things like your house, your garden, your property, like your computer, your clothes, your food. This can be seen as stuff that is important to your life that every human deserves and has a right to a living, a right to a life. And under a socialist system, all these things are guaranteed as human rights and things that everyone is entitled to, just for existing, just for being a human being and being a valued, intrinsically valuable life. Now, private property is different because private property is what you use to accumulate capital, to commodify land and resources, to insulate and protect your power, to maintain the class uh, system that you preside over. Private property is held by capitalists to commodify the land and to, as per their name, accumulate capital to commodify and then grow their power. This includes things like land, so farmers owning vast portions of society. And when I say farmers, I mean more corporations, TNCs. Think of McDonald's buying up substantial portions of land in Africa or in South America. Think of the acquisition of land in the third world in Southeast Asia by TNCs like Apple and Samsung. This is private property. This is capitalists taking land, taking resources, and using it to commodify them, to turn them into profit makers, to turn them into resources to accumulate capital and thus insulate their power, to commodify the world. Now, this is not good. This is a form of unjust power, an unjust hierarchy of the powerful maintaining their power by designating land for themselves, by taking the produce of society, cordoning it off for themselves, and then maintaining their power with this. And it's important to define the two. One is what you need to survive, one is what you need to insulate your power, to grow your capital, to become a capitalist, and to be the ruling class. And it is only capitalists who can own private property. Therefore, it is not good. Capitalists are not a just thing to be. They are people who commodify the land, who take the labour value and produce of workers and use it for their own goods. This land, these resources, should belong to everyone, should belong to workers. A factory should not need one or two people owning it, but should be controlled democratically and jointly by the workers, who are able to then use the produce for the good of society, for the good of everyone, for the benefit of all involved, rather than most of the produce going to the wealthy bureaucrat who doesn't even set foot in the factory, and the workers receiving a pittance, a minimum wage, if that. In a fair and just society, private property would not exist because the need to accumulate capital, the need to insulate and raise your class above others would not happen. You wouldn't see this commodification because society has done away with such unjust systems and hierarchies, and therefore we do not need such boundaries and cordoning off of society. Personal property is what we need. Private property is not needed and does not benefit anyone but the ruling class. It's important to remember that there is a blur. Some people do own property which they use to commodify land and labour. Think of small shops and stuff. And it is true that they do technically own private property. However, this is nowhere on the scale of the TNCs, of people like Apple and Amazon, who own vast portions of land. And with the removal of capitalism, these businesses would not become such a problem. Suddenly, you wouldn't see the exploitation of labour that allows these businesses to employ minimum wage employees and take their labour and exploit them. Suddenly, you wouldn't really need to see these little shops in the first place because such people don't have to rely on the trade to have an income because with the increase of automation and the rise of better communications and better transparency between workers across the world, you wouldn't see the need for such fronts. But even so, there's no need for society to cordon off land for the wealthy, to have vast portions of land and resources belonging as the property of a capitalist just for their commodification and profit. And the longer we allow this to go on, the more we're going to see suffering and poverty increase, because we are allowing so much to be controlled by so few, and it has to end for the benefit of everyone on the planet.